The decision you make today will either move you toward freedom or keep you in chains. Think about that for a moment. Every person who has ever achieved emotional liberation made one crucial choice that changed everything. That choice wasn't complicated, but it was profound. They decided they were worth more than the pain they were experiencing. I want to ask you something right now, and I want you to answer honestly within yourself. Who is in control of your emotional life? Is it you or is it someone else? Because whoever controls your emotions controls your destiny. You see, letting go of someone who hurts you isn't just about ending a relationship. It's about reclaiming ownership of yourself. Most people spend years, sometimes decades, giving their power away to others who don't deserve it. They wake up one day and wonder where their life went. That doesn't have to be your story. Consider this truth. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Pain comes from what others do to us, but suffering comes from how long we choose to hold on to it. The moment you truly understand this distinction is the moment your healing begins. I remember meeting a woman named Sarah. For 7 years, she remained emotionally tethered to a man who had repeatedly betrayed her trust. I can't let go, she told me, tears streaming down her face. I've invested too much time. I asked her a simple question. Would you rather lose 7 years or 17? That question changed everything for her. 6 months later, she was building a new life based on self-respect rather than hope for someone else's change. What's fascinating about emotional attachment is that it operates according to predictable patterns. Just as a farmer understands the seasons, we must understand the seasons of our emotional lives. There's a season for attachment, a season for separation, a season for healing, and a season for renewal. Many people get stuck because they're fighting against the natural progression of these emotional seasons. The first step toward freedom always begins with radical responsibility. Not blame, responsibility. Blame looks backward while responsibility looks forward. When you blame someone for hurting you, you remain their prisoner. When you take responsibility for your healing, you become your own liberator. Ask yourself, what am I getting from holding on to this pain? Because make no mistake, if you're holding on to it, you're getting something from it. Perhaps it's the comfort of familiarity. Perhaps it's the avoidance of growth. Perhaps it's the story you tell yourself and others about why you can't move forward. Whatever it is, identify it. Name it. Then decide if that benefit is worth the cost of your freedom. Most people never make this honest assessment. They choose comfort over growth, familiarity over possibility. They mistake their cage for safety. But inside, something is slowly dying. Their spirit, their joy, their capacity for authentic connection. The turning point comes when the pain of remaining the same becomes greater than the pain of change. For some, this happens through sudden revelation. For others, it's the slow accumulation of countless small moments of clarity. Either way, there comes a moment when you must decide, will I continue giving away my power, or will I reclaim it? This choice isn't a one-time event. It's a daily practice. Moment by moment, thought by thought, you rebuild your emotional sovereignty. Some days you'll step forward, other days you might step back. The direction matters more than the speed. One of the hardest truths about letting go is recognizing that forgiveness isn't for the other person, it's for you. Carrying resentment is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. It doesn't work. Never has, never will. Think about this. When someone hurts you and you can't let go, they're hurting you twice. First, through their actions, and second, through your ongoing attachment to those actions. By holding on, you give them permanent residence in your mind. You make them your landlord while you pay the rent. True emotional mastery comes from understanding that you always have a choice in how you respond to what happens to you. Always. No one can take that away unless you surrender it willingly. Most people surrender it without even realizing they've done so. I want you to try something right now. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine that the person who hurt you is sitting across from you. What are the words you've been holding back? What truth needs to be spoken? Now imagine yourself speaking that truth, not with anger or vengeance, but with the calm certainty that comes from self-respect. How does that feel? That feeling is the first taste of your freedom. Of course, actually communicating these things to the person who hurt you may or may not be appropriate, depending on your specific situation. But expressing them to yourself is always necessary. It's part of reclaiming your narrative. The stories we tell ourselves shape our reality more powerfully than most realize. If your story is I was a victim and now I'm damaged, that becomes your reality. If your story is I experienced pain and now I'm growing, that becomes your reality instead. Same events, different narrative, vastly different outcomes. Most people unconsciously choose their narratives based on what feels comfortable rather than what serves their growth. They remain stuck in cycles of pain because they haven't learned how to tell a new story. Breaking free requires authoring a narrative where you're the hero rather than the victim, the actor rather than the acted upon. This doesn't mean denying what happened to you. Quite the opposite. It means fully acknowledging what happened, but refusing to let it define your future. There's tremendous power in this distinction. Consider how many of your decisions are still being influenced by past hurts. The reluctance to trust again. The protective walls you've built. The opportunities you've avoided for fear of being hurt again. Each of these represents a choice, not a choice made in freedom, but a choice made in reaction to past pain. Reaction versus response. Another crucial distinction. Reacting comes from your wounds. Responding comes from your wisdom. Most people spend their lives reacting to past hurts, rather than responding to present opportunities. This keeps them trapped in cycles of pain, repeating the same patterns with different people. The pattern-breaking question is this. What would you do if you weren't afraid? How would you show up in your relationships if past hurts weren't dictating your choices? The gap between your current reality and the answer to that question is precisely the work that needs to be done. This work isn't easy, but neither is staying stuck. Both require energy. The difference is that one depletes you while the other fulfills you. One keeps you in familiar territory while the other leads to growth. One maintains your pain while the other transforms it into wisdom. The foundation of all emotional freedom is self-knowledge. Most people don't truly know themselves. They know the roles they play, the masks they wear, the expectations they try to meet. But they've lost touch with their authentic core, their true desires, boundaries, and values. Reconnecting with yourself after being hurt requires courage. It means facing the uncomfortable question, who am I beyond this pain? Who was I before it? Who might I become after it? These questions feel threatening because they demand change, and change feels uncertain. But without asking them, true healing remains impossible. Part of this process involves understanding your own contribution to the dynamic that hurt you. This isn't about self-blame. It's about self-awareness. Perhaps you ignored red flags. Perhaps you compromised your boundaries. Perhaps you sought external validation rather than internal worth. Recognizing these patterns doesn't excuse what was done to you, but it empowers you to make different choices moving forward. The philosopher Epictetus said, "Make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens." You can't control whether someone apologizes to you. You can't control whether they change. You can't control whether they ever recognize the pain they caused. But you can control your response. You can control your healing. You can control the meaning you assign to what happened. This shift from external to internal focus marks the beginning of true emotional freedom. As long as your healing depends on someone else's actions, you remain their hostage. The moment your healing becomes your responsibility, regardless of what they do or don't do, you begin to reclaim your power. I once worked with a man named Michael who had been betrayed by his business partner of 15 years. The betrayal cost him millions and nearly destroyed his reputation. For 2 years, Michael remained consumed by thoughts of revenge, constantly checking what his former partner was doing, hoping for his failure. One day, Michael realized that he was giving his former partner free rent in his mind, and it was costing him his present and future. I decided, Michael told me, that success would be my revenge, but not just any success. The kind of success that comes from being totally aligned with my values and purpose. Within 3 years, Michael had built a new business more successful than his previous one. More importantly, he had found peace. The turning point wasn't when his circumstances changed. It was when he stopped allowing his past to determine his future. This principle applies universally, whether you're healing from a romantic betrayal, a family wound, a friendship gone wrong, or a professional hurt. The pathway to freedom always begins with the decision to stop waiting for external circumstances to change and start changing your internal landscape instead. Most people misunderstand this process. They think letting go means forgetting or pretending they weren't hurt. That's not letting go, that's denial. True letting go means fully acknowledging what happened, extracting the wisdom from it, and then consciously choosing to stop carrying the emotional burden. It's saying, this happened, it hurt, I learned, and now I choose something different. This process has predictable stages, just like grief. First comes shock and denial, then anger, then bargaining, then depression, and finally acceptance. Many people get stuck in anger or bargaining. They keep thinking, if only they would apologize, or if only they would see how much they hurt me. This keeps them locked in a dependency relationship with the very person who hurt them. Moving beyond this stage requires accepting a difficult truth. The person who hurt you may never give you what you feel you need from them. They may never apologize. They may never acknowledge the pain they caused. They may never change. And that's precisely why your healing can't depend on their actions. This realization often triggers a period of grief, mourning not just the relationship, but also the closure you hope for, but may never receive. This grief is necessary. It's part of the emotional composting process that transforms pain into growth. Trying to skip this stage only prolongs your suffering. Creating space for new experiences requires systematic dismantling of old patterns. This transformation operates according to natural laws, just like farming. The farmer understands that you cannot plant and harvest in the same season. First comes preparation of the soil, then planting, then cultivation, and finally, after patience and persistent effort, comes the harvest. Your emotional life follows these same principles. Many try to rush the harvest without doing the necessary groundwork. They wonder why they keep attracting the same types of people, experiencing the same kinds of hurt. It's because they haven't prepared their emotional soil. They haven't removed the rocks of resentment, the weeds of limiting beliefs, or added the nutrients of self-worth. Ask yourself, what kind of harvest am I currently experiencing in my relationships? Whatever you're reaping today was planted in seasons past, through your beliefs about what you deserve, your boundaries, or lack thereof, and your unconscious patterns. If you want a different harvest, you must plant different seeds. The preparation begins with honest assessment. Most people never take inventory of the beliefs they carry about themselves, relationships, and what's possible. These beliefs operate like invisible software, running silently in the background of your mind, determining what you notice, what you attract, and what you create. Common limiting beliefs include, I'm not enough, love always leads to pain, I don't deserve better, people will always leave, I have to earn love through performance. These beliefs aren't facts, they're interpretations that became calcified through repetition. And here's the crucial point, you can change them. This process begins with awareness. Notice the thoughts that arise automatically when you consider opening yourself to new relationships. Pay attention to the inner critic that speaks when you think about your worth. These automatic thoughts reveal your current programming. Next comes the practice of questioning. Is it true that you're not enough? Is it true that love always leads to pain? Is it true that you must earn love? Most of these beliefs collapse under scrutiny. They persist not because they're valid, but because they've gone unchallenged. Replacing these limiting beliefs with empowering ones isn't about positive thinking, it's about accurate thinking. It's about recognizing that you weren't born believing you were inadequate or unworthy. These beliefs were installed through experience and reinforced through repetition. They can be uninstalled through the same process. The most powerful replacement beliefs are those grounded in your intrinsic worth, not your performance, not your relationships, not what you do, but who you fundamentally are. This shift from conditional to unconditional self-worth forms the foundation of all healthy relationships moving forward. Alongside this internal work comes the essential practice of establishing boundaries. Boundaries aren't walls that keep others out. They're standards that determine who gets in. Most people who struggle with letting go never established clear boundaries to begin with. They allowed behavior they should have rejected, accepted treatment they should have refused. Healthy boundaries come from self-respect, not fear or control. They're not about manipulating others' behavior. They're about clarifying what you will and won't participate in. They're statements of personal sovereignty. This is acceptable to me. This is not. Creating boundaries after having poor ones feels uncomfortable at first. You worry about seeming harsh or selfish. But consider this, the most compassionate people have the clearest boundaries. Why? Because they don't allow resentment to build through unwanted treatment. They address issues directly, honestly, and without unnecessary drama. The foundation of all boundary setting is the willingness to experience short-term discomfort for long-term well-being. Most people avoid this discomfort, choosing instead the slow erosion of their self-respect. They say yes when they mean no. They accept crumbs when they hunger for the full meal. They rationalize behavior that diminishes them. Breaking this pattern requires courage. The courage to state your needs clearly, to face potential rejection, to stand alone if necessary, rather than compromise your worth. This courage isn't about being fearless. It's about feeling the fear of asserting your value and doing it anyway. As you establish healthier boundaries, you'll notice something remarkable. The quality of people and opportunities flowing into your life begins to change. This isn't mystical, it's mathematical. When you raise your standards, you filter out everything and everyone who can't meet them. What remains is of higher quality. This filtering process feels like loss at first. Relationships that once seemed essential fall away. Activities that once provided distraction lose their appeal. There's an emptiness that can feel frightening. Most people rush to fill this space with new relationships, new activities, new distractions. This is a critical mistake. The empty space that follows letting go isn't something to fear. It's something to protect. It's fertile ground for new growth. Rushing to fill it repeats old patterns. Protecting it allows for genuine transformation. Learn to be comfortable with this emptiness. It won't last forever, but its lessons are essential. During this fallow period, focus on building relationship with yourself. Most people who struggle with letting go have lost connection with their own values, preferences, and joy. They've been so focused on managing others' perceptions and reactions that they've forgotten who they are apart from those relationships. Rediscovering yourself after emotional attachment is like learning to walk again after an injury. It happens gradually, with missteps along the way. Be patient with this process. Ask yourself daily, what brings me joy? What matters to me? What do I want my life to represent? These questions reconnect you with your authentic core. This reconnection enables the next phase of growth, creating a compelling future vision. Without such a vision, the gravitational pull of past relationships becomes nearly irresistible. Nature abhors a vacuum. If you don't consciously design your future, your mind will default to recreating your past. Your vision must be specific and emotionally engaging. Not just I want to be happy, but I want to create a life filled with meaningful work, authentic connections, and daily experiences of beauty. The more detailed this vision, the more power it holds to pull you forward when the past tries to reclaim you. Most people mistake mere wishing for vision. A wish is passive. I hope things get better. A vision is active. I am creating something specific, and every choice I make moves me toward or away from it. This distinction transforms how you approach each day. The daily disciplines that support your vision become the architecture of your new life. These aren't grand, heroic actions, but small, consistent choices that compound over time. Reading that nourishes your mind, movement that strengthens your body, connections that feed your spirit, boundaries that protect your energy. These disciplines aren't about perfection, but direction. On some days you'll falter. The pull of old patterns will feel overwhelming. This isn't failure, it's feedback. It reveals where more healing is needed, where old beliefs still hold sway, where boundaries need reinforcement. The rhythm of growth isn't linear, it spirals, revisiting similar territories at deeper levels. You might think, I already worked through this. Why is it coming up again? Because healing happens in layers. Each time you encounter an old pattern from a new perspective, you have the opportunity to release it more completely. This spiral nature of growth is why surrounding yourself with the right influences becomes crucial. The books you read, the conversations you have, the examples you follow, these shape your understanding of what's possible. Choose influences that elevate rather than diminish you, that challenge rather than comfort you, that expand rather than contract your sense of possibility. Few understand the compounding effect of these choices. Just as money compounds in an investment account, wisdom compounds in a life consistently devoted to growth. Small daily choices. A book instead of mindless distraction, a honest conversation instead of people-pleasing, a boundary honored instead of compromised, create radical transformation over time. This compounding explains why some people completely transform their lives after heartbreak, while others remain stuck for decades. It's not about the intensity of their pain or the severity of their circumstances. It's about their response, specifically, whether they use pain as a catalyst for growth or an excuse for stagnation. The catalyst that accelerates this growth is accountability, not just to others, but primarily to yourself. Most people make private promises they publicly break, eroding their self-trust with each compromise. Rebuilding this trust requires making agreements with yourself that you keep religiously, not from rigid discipline, but from renewed self-respect. Start with small promises you know you can keep. Perhaps it's reading for 20 minutes each morning, or writing in a journal each evening, or taking a walk each afternoon. The content of these promises matters less than the keeping of them. Each kept promise rebuilds your relationship with yourself. As self-trust grows, expand your agreements to include how you'll respond when triggered by memories of past hurt. Most people remain reactive, allowing old wounds to dictate their behavior. Breaking this pattern requires having a plan before the trigger occurs, a specific set of actions you'll take when emotional waves threaten to pull you under. This might include physical movement to discharge emotional energy, writing to externalize painful thoughts, calling a trusted friend who understands your journey, or practices like meditation that create space between stimulus and response. The specific techniques matter less than having them ready before you need them. With consistent practice, you'll notice a subtle but profound shift. What once controlled you becomes subject to your choice. The pain that felt overwhelming becomes manageable. The person who seemed essential to your happiness becomes just one chapter in your larger story. This shift marks the transition from recovery to growth, from healing past wounds to creating future possibilities. This transition often triggers unexpected grief. Even as you create a healthier life, part of you mourns what might have been, the relationships you hoped for but never experienced. Honor this grief rather than denying it. It's not a sign of regression, but of honest reckoning with reality. At the same time, be vigilant about the stories you tell about what happened. Many people create narratives that keep them stuck. I'm the person who was betrayed. I'm the one who wasn't chosen. I'm the one who trusted unwisely. These identities, reinforced through repetition, become prisons that outlast the relationships that spawned them. The alternative is crafting a redemptive narrative, one that acknowledges the pain while emphasizing the growth it catalyzed. I experienced betrayal, which taught me to trust my instincts. I wasn't chosen by someone who couldn't recognize my worth, which led me to choose myself. I trusted unwisely once, which helped me develop wisdom about who deserves my trust. This redemptive framing isn't denial or toxic positivity. It's strategic focus. Two people can experience identical circumstances and create radically different futures based solely on the stories they tell about what happened. Choose your narrative consciously, knowing it shapes the opportunities you notice and create. As you develop this new narrative, pay close attention to your language, both internal and external. The words you use program your nervous system. When you say I am heartbroken, you reinforce that state. When you say I am experiencing heartbreak, you create space between yourself and the emotion. This linguistic shift seems small, but holds tremendous power. Similarly, watch for absolutist language. Never, always, everyone, no one. These words transform specific experiences into universal truths. He betrayed me becomes people always betray me. She left becomes everyone leaves. These generalizations create expectations that your subconscious works to fulfill, perpetuating cycles of pain. The antidote is specific, accurate language that distinguishes between particular experiences and universal patterns. This precision creates cognitive flexibility, allowing you to see new possibilities rather than confirming old fears. It's the difference between relationships are painful and that relationship was painful. This cognitive flexibility enables you to approach new relationships with discernment rather than distrust. Many people swing between naive openness and rigid closure after being hurt. Neither serves growth. Discernment means being open to connection while maintaining clear awareness of both yourself and others. This awareness includes recognizing potential patterns without projecting past hurts onto present possibilities. When meeting new people, the question isn't will they hurt me like others have, but rather who is this person showing themselves to be through their actions? How do I feel in their presence? Are they consistently respectful of my boundaries? These questions shift focus from fear-based protection to value-based selection. They emerge from worthiness rather than woundedness. They reflect a crucial truth. The goal isn't avoiding all pain, but choosing relationships worthy of vulnerability, connections where the potential joy outweighs the potential hurt. This selection process becomes more refined as you heal. You'll notice red flags you previously ignored or rationalized. You'll feel discomfort with dynamics you once accepted as normal. You'll recognize manipulation tactics that once bypassed your awareness. This isn't paranoia. It's evolved discernment. At the same time, your ability to recognize green flags also increases. You become more attuned to qualities like emotional consistency, kept promises, respect for boundaries, appropriate vulnerability, and genuine interest in your well-being. These indicators of health stand out more clearly against the backdrop of past pain. This growing discernment represents the alchemy of personal growth, the transformation of pain into wisdom. What hurt you becomes what taught you, not intellectually but viscerally. You don't just know better, you feel differently. Your nervous system recognizes what your heart once overlooked. This newfound discernment carries profound implications beyond romantic relationships. It extends to friendships, family dynamics, professional associations, every realm where human connection occurs. As your standards elevate in one area, they naturally rise across all others. You begin recognizing patterns of disrespect or manipulation you previously tolerated in various contexts. The result is a comprehensive upgrade in your relational ecosystem. Connections that drain your energy or diminish your spirit gradually fall away. Those that support your growth and honor your worth naturally strengthen. This isn't about dramatic confrontations or abrupt endings, but rather a natural evolution as your energy aligns with your values. This alignment reveals one of life's most powerful principles: you attract what you are, not what you want. Most people focus exclusively on what they desire in others while ignoring what they're embodying themselves. They wonder why the same patterns keep appearing without recognizing themselves as the common denominator. Breaking these patterns requires ruthless self-honesty about your own contributing behaviors. Perhaps you've been choosing partners based on potential rather than reality. Perhaps you've been attempting to earn love through caretaking or performance. Perhaps you've been avoiding authentic connection through various distractions. These patterns don't make you wrong or bad, they make you human. We all develop adaptive strategies in response to early experiences. These strategies may have served important purposes once, protecting you from rejection or abandonment. The question isn't why am I so broken, but rather what was this pattern trying to accomplish for me, and what healthier strategy could serve that same purpose. This reframing shifts you from self-judgment to self-understanding, from shame to compassion. It recognizes that most self-sabotaging behaviors began as attempts at self-protection. Seeing this clearly allows you to honor the intent behind these patterns while choosing more effective approaches. For many, these patterns include conflict avoidance, excessive people-pleasing, emotional shutdown, control mechanisms, or seeking validation through achievement or appearance. Each represents a strategy for managing the fundamental human fears of rejection, inadequacy, or abandonment. The transformation comes not from fighting these patterns, but from addressing the underlying fears that drive them. This requires courage, the courage to feel emotions you've been avoiding, to express needs you've been denying, to face truths you've been evading. Most people underestimate the role of unprocessed emotion in keeping them stuck. They intellectualize their experiences, analyzing what happened without actually feeling the associated emotions. This creates the illusion of processing while the emotional energy remains trapped in their bodies, driving unconscious behavior. True emotional processing means allowing yourself to feel fully and without resistance the grief, anger, disappointment, or fear associated with past hurt. Not to wallow in these emotions, but to move through them. Emotion is energy in motion. When blocked, it creates stagnation. When flowing, it creates transformation. Various practices support this emotional release. Physical movement helps discharge the somatic component of emotion. Expressive writing accesses feelings that may be difficult to verbalize. Specific breathwork techniques regulate the nervous system's response to emotional activation. These aren't merely coping strategies, they're liberation practices. As emotional energy becomes unstuck, you'll notice increased creativity, clearer intuition, and greater access to joy. These aren't separate from the healing process but natural byproducts of it. When you're no longer using massive amounts of energy to suppress emotion or maintain protective patterns, that energy becomes available for creation rather than constriction. This freed energy enables you to focus on what I call the magnificent obsession, the pursuit of becoming the fullest, most authentic expression of yourself. When this becomes your primary focus, something remarkable happens. The people who hurt you lose their hold on your attention. They become minor characters rather than protagonists in your story. This shift happens not through forced forgetting, but through genuine redirection of focus. As you become increasingly fascinated with your own growth and creation, rumination about past hurts naturally diminishes. The mind simply doesn't have capacity to simultaneously focus on expansion and contraction, creation and resentment. The question that accelerates this shift is, what am I here to contribute? Not just what you want to get, but what you're meant to give. This question connects you to purpose beyond personal happiness, which paradoxically becomes the surest path to happiness itself. Purpose creates resilience because it provides meaning for difficulties. When your focus expands beyond your own pain to the contribution you're uniquely positioned to make, past hurts become part of your qualification rather than your limitation. They transform from senseless suffering into hard-earned wisdom that enables you to serve others facing similar challenges. This perspective shift doesn't happen overnight. Like all aspects of growth, it develops through consistent practice, specifically the practice of asking better questions. The questions you habitually ask determine the quality of your life more powerfully than almost any other factor. Most people ask disempowering questions when hurt. Why did this happen to me? What's wrong with me? Why don't they love me? These questions direct focus backward and reinforce victimhood. They have no answers that serve growth. Empowering alternatives include, what strength am I developing through this experience? How is this preparing me for my future? What would become possible if I used this pain as fuel rather than anchor? These questions direct focus forward and reinforce agency. They generate answers that create momentum. The most powerful question for breaking free from someone who hurt you is this: who am I becoming through this process? This question acknowledges that identity is fluid rather than fixed. You aren't defined by what happened to you, but by how you respond and who you choose to become as a result. Most people never consciously engage with their identity development. They accept the labels applied to them by others, or by their own past experiences. They say, I am anxious, I am unlucky in relationships, I am damaged. These statements aren't descriptions, they're prescriptions. They instruct your subconscious about how to organize your experience. The alternative is conscious identity creation, deliberately choosing and reinforcing who you're becoming. This isn't pretense or denial, but strategic focus and language. I am developing confidence. I am learning to select healthy relationships. I am healing and growing stronger. These statements acknowledge current reality while emphasizing direction rather than destination. This process accelerates when supported by environmental design, intentionally structuring your surroundings to reinforce your desired identity. The books on your shelves, the conversations you engage in, the people you spend time with, the information you consume, all of these shape your sense of possibility and normalcy. Most people passively accept whatever environment surrounds them, then wonder why change feels so difficult. They're fighting against the gravitational pull of circumstances designed to maintain their current identity. True transformation requires creating external conditions that support your internal evolution. This environmental design includes careful curation of the you allow into your consciousness. Whose perspectives are you regularly exposed to? Do they reinforce limitation or possibility? Do they focus on problems or solutions? Do they emphasize what's wrong with the world, or what can be improved? These influences shape your mental landscape more powerfully than most realize. Equally important is the physical space you inhabit. Your environment doesn't just reflect your state of mind, it creates it. Cluttered spaces create cluttered thinking. Chaotic environments generate chaotic emotions. Beautiful surroundings foster beautiful thoughts. Your physical space is a tangible expression of how you value yourself and your life. For many who've experienced relational hurt, reorganizing physical space becomes a powerful act of reclamation, removing objects associated with painful memories, rearranging furniture to create new energy flow, introducing elements that bring joy or peace. These seemingly superficial changes create profound psychological shifts. This principle extends to your body, the most immediate environment you inhabit. How you nourish, move, rest, and care for your physical self directly impacts your emotional resilience and mental clarity. Many attempt to heal emotional wounds, while neglecting the physical foundation that supports all experience. The relationship between physical and emotional well-being operates bidirectionally. Physical practices like adequate sleep, nutrition, and movement create the conditions for emotional healing. Emotional processing reduces physical tension and improves physiological function. They form a virtuous cycle, each supporting the other. Most people approach healing in fragmented ways, addressing either physical or emotional dimensions while ignoring their interconnection. The most effective approach integrates both, recognizing that you don't have separate systems, but rather one unified human experience expressed through various dimensions. This integrated approach leads to what I call whole person transformation, change that encompasses your thinking, feeling, relating, and creating capacities. This comprehensive growth enables you not just to let go of someone who hurt you, but to evolve beyond the person who could be hurt in that particular way. This doesn't mean becoming invulnerable, quite the opposite. It means developing the resilience to remain open despite knowing pain is possible. It means creating such a strong internal foundation that you can risk connection without risking your fundamental well-being. It means loving from wholeness rather than need. The paradox is this: the more complete you become within yourself, the more capable you become of authentic connection with others. When you no longer need someone to complete you, you can choose them from freedom rather than desperation. This shift from attachment-based to growth-based relationships transforms not just who you attract, but how you experience connection itself. In attachment-based relationships, the primary question is, what can you give me? In growth-based relationships, it becomes, who can we become together? The first creates dependency and eventual resentment. The second creates partnership and ongoing evolution. The journey from one to the other constitutes the core work of emotional maturation. This maturation process isn't widely understood because it's rarely taught. Most learn relationship patterns from family systems, cultural models, or trial and error experience. Few receive explicit guidance in the principles that create lasting, growth-oriented connections. These principles include emotional self-responsibility, effective communication during conflict, balance between autonomy and connection, resilience in the face of disappointment, and the capacity to love without demanding reciprocity. Developing these capabilities requires deliberate practice rather than passive hoping. The foundation of all these capacities is what psychologists call differentiation, the ability to maintain your sense of self while in close proximity to others. Most relationship dysfunction stems from either fusion, losing yourself in others, or disconnection, isolating to preserve yourself. Differentiation offers the middle path, remaining fully yourself while fully engaged. Developing this capacity begins with clarity about your own values, boundaries, and non-negotiables. Not rigid rules imposed on others, but clear standards about how you'll participate in relationships. These standards aren't primarily about others' behavior, but about your own responses, what you'll accept, how you'll communicate, when you'll engage or disengage. Most people focus exclusively on finding the right person, while neglecting the more essential work of becoming someone capable of healthy relationship, regardless of who the other person is. They place responsibility for their happiness entirely on their partner's shoulders, creating unsustainable pressure and inevitable disappointment. The alternative is taking full responsibility for your emotional experience while remaining open to connection. This balanced approach recognizes that while others can trigger your feelings, you alone determine their duration and intensity through your interpretation and response. This understanding creates freedom without disconnection. Living from this centered place doesn't mean you won't experience pain in relationships. Pain is inevitable in any meaningful connection because genuine caring creates vulnerability. The difference is that this pain doesn't devastate you. It becomes information rather than identity, feedback rather than failure. From this foundation, you can build what I call resilient intimacy, connection that withstands disappointment, navigates conflict, and deepens through challenges rather than dissolving. This capacity doesn't develop through finding perfect partners, but through becoming someone who responds to imperfection with wisdom rather than withdrawal or attack. The daily practices that build this capacity are deceptively simple yet transformative when applied consistently. They include honest self-reflection about your emotional patterns, direct communication about your needs and boundaries, willingness to hear others' perspectives without defensiveness, and the courage to remain engaged during discomfort. These practices don't guarantee particular outcomes with specific individuals. They guarantee something far more valuable: the ability to create healthy connection regardless of circumstances. They transform you from someone desperately seeking the right relationship to someone capable of creating right relationship wherever you go. This transformation represents the ultimate freedom, the freedom to love without fear, to connect without losing yourself, to risk without catastrophizing potential loss. It emerges not from finding someone who won't hurt you, but from becoming someone who can navigate hurt with grace, learn from it with humility, and continue loving despite it. The extraordinary life awaiting you on the other side of letting go isn't about absence of pain, but presence of purpose. It's not about perfect protection, but perfect participation, full engagement with the adventure of becoming your most authentic self, while connecting with others doing the same. This adventure begins with a single decision, the decision to value your growth more than your comfort, your future more than your past, your possibility more than your pain. This decision, renewed daily through conscious choice and consistent action, creates momentum that eventually becomes unstoppable. The question isn't whether you have the capacity for this transformation. You do. The question is whether you'll claim it, whether you'll stop waiting for perfect circumstances and start creating perfect effort, whether you'll release what's comfortable but constraining to embrace what's challenging but liberating. The time for this decision isn't someday when you feel ready. It's today, in this moment, through the next choice you make. Will that choice reinforce old patterns or create new possibilities? Will it reflect who you've been or who you're becoming? Will it be dictated by past hurt or future vision? Your answer, expressed through action rather than intention, determines whether letting go becomes merely an ending or the beginning of the most extraordinary chapter of your life. Choose wisely, choose courageously, choose now, because this moment, like every moment, contains within it the seed of who you will become.